Welcome to this video. I have not been making a lot of videos because I've been having a lot of work at the hospital. I'm an intern. There is a hierarchy of people at a hospital. There is the senior doctors, then there is the junior doctor, then there are PGs, postgraduate students, and then we have interns. And right below that, you have trash cans. So that is an intern. First thing in the morning, you get up and you have to go and write investigations. The patient has given his blood and a lot of these tests have been done and the results have come back and you can access them on a computer. But each department has an investigation chart that you need to fill out so that they can have all of these values the way they want. So you have hemoglobin, glucose, CRP, etc. for medicine. For another department like OBG, you have it in a slightly different order. But guess what interns have to do now? We have to go there early in the morning and start copying it down from a computer into this paper. The beautiful thing about this is the first, when you go to the hospital, the computer is already occupied by other people because they also need to do the same work. So you wait for a computer for about 5 to 10 minutes for each computer. And when it's your chance, you take this investigation form. Again, there is another thing. To search for this investigation form, there are multiple counters. And you search this form everywhere. And if you're lucky, you will find an investigation form. You somehow take that and start copying everything down. So that's the first thing that you have to do once you go to the hospital. So a new patient comes into your hospital. And we have to do a lot of things. You have to ask the patient what is his complaint, why did he come to the hospital, and you have to write it down somewhere in his file. Multiple departments. For example, if the patient has a consultation in ortho and pain clinic, for example, people from different departments come and ask the patient the same basic questions like what is your age, like what are you married, etc. Maybe not are you married, but you get it. The same things are asked again and again. And sometimes we even write it on a register. So there is a huge logbook for certain things. For example, the patient's blood pressure and weight. And each patient who comes, you take their blood pressure and BP and write it in this logbook. Now, the reason why this logbook exists is because somebody wants to do a research on what the patient's BMI is generally across the population. And the way they do it is they ask the intern to write down all of these values in a logbook each time a patient comes. And another intern has to take this logbook and write it again as an Excel sheet the next day. And that takes another 3-4 hours for him to do. And this keeps happening every day. So a patient comes in, it's just not, you're just not looking at the patient, you're not talking to him face to face. You're mostly concerned about these additional work that you have to do, that you have to write his diagnosis here in the logbook, in the file, in another 3-4 logbooks that they have. And then you have to search for all these forms that you need to give the patient for admission. These forms will be scattered throughout the hospital and you need to have your own adventure to find them. And somebody calls you and they tell you that another patient has to be discharged. So guess what you do when the patient gets discharged? You have to write something called the discharge summary. So what that basically is you take the case file that in which the patient's diagnosis was written, and you again copy that down into this other form, which is for the patient's discharge summary. And you write everything that there is in the patient's file, his investigations, his treatment plan, all that you write it in a discharge summary, and then you save it. So the patient, when he's getting discharged, you want to process his file. So by processing, it means that the hospital needs to do everything required before the patient goes out. So his insurance can be processed, his billing is done. When a patient's file has to be processed, first the doctor has to sign on his discharge summary. The doctor who treated the patient has to sign off on his discharge summary. So the intern, he might have already prepared the discharge summary the previous day. And after taking 4 or 5 printouts of the same, after wasting 20 papers for that, because the printer, obviously, it prints on the same side twice for some reason. After all that, you have the discharge summary. You have the paper. And now you need to get that signed by the doctor who treated the patient. So you need to now find this doctor. You don't know where he is. You need to go somehow and find this doctor as soon as possible, because if the patient doesn't get discharged by 2 o'clock for some reason, the patient cannot be discharged until the next day. So they have to stay another extra day just because it wasn't processed in time, and they have to pay extra for that. So you run around seeking this doctor, and somehow you find him and get the signature. Now they need the doctor's seal, and the doctor doesn't have the doctor's seal. You need to go to another place where they have all the seals of every doctor, and they need to stamp this seal everywhere that the doctor's sign is. Now after you're finished with all of this, you finally take this file and you're all tired, and you go back to the nurse's station and you give back the file saying the discharge has been completed from our side. Now the nurse again starts to panic, and she starts doing everything really fast, because on their side they still have so many things left. And till I was searching for this doctor with the file, the nurse was not able to do anything because she didn't have the file. So it's like, although these two things are not related in any way, they were stopped dead in their tracks because they needed the file and I had the file. This keeps happening, and we've seen so many patients stay another extra day just because their discharge wasn't processed in time. Insurance codes. You need to find the insurance code for the procedure that you're doing. And we have a thick book for each insurance company. So each insurance company has their own insurance codes. So there is Ayushman Bharat, there is Aditya Birla, there is hundreds of other things. So you check every single code and find out what the code is for this particular procedure. And after all that is done, you again send it to another department, the insurance counter department. So after all this is done, the patient can finally be discharged. In the middle of all this, sometimes what happens is you lose your pen. In the hospital, there is this funny thing, like you take a bar of solid gold, keep it somewhere, nobody will steal it. But if you keep a pen, it'll go missing in less than a minute. And when you lose your pen, remember the hierarchy that I told you about? You become more useless than a dustbin. So you just get demoted one more step. And you literally can't do anything. You ask for a pen, they won't give you because they need their pen. All this is very easily preventable, to be honest. Like, I've been making a lot of videos about healthcare technology and how things can be used, but there are some basic things where people go wrong. So many things here can be prevented if people just use their phones to view data. I'm sorry if this sounded like a rant, but I just wanted to share with you all the problems that I face on a daily basis. I would really like to solve at least a few of these problems wherever I can. Hope this video, you've learned something out of it, and that's it.